Welcome to another episode of Second Take with Ashwin Berry. I must say, I'm very optimistic about Africa in general. What's not to be optimistic about? The place is beautiful, the people are wonderful, they are welcoming, but there's also the politics. And the politics, they give me pause. They make me shake a little bit more than I would like to when I want steady footing as far as my belief in Africa goes. And today is going to be no different, actually. It's not going to be any different. We're going to talk about Museveni in Uganda doing what he does, staying in power for longer than he's supposed to. William Ruto in Kenya, a legend of not being able to read the room. Wicknell Chivayo, who is the physical embodiment of corruption in Zimbabwe. And the new Pope, who might be the only positive aspect of the show. Depends on how you look at it. Welcome to the show. Yoweri Museveni has been Uganda's president since 1986. Yes, Gen Zs, that's before TikTok, smartphones, or even Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And he's showing no signs of letting go. 80 years old and still clinging to the throne like it's something bolted to his seat. Museveni has ruled through a mix of old-school autocrat tricks, changing the constitution when it didn't suit him, term limits, age limits, delete, stacking courts with loyalists, keeping the military tight to his chest, and using state funds like it's his personal monopoly game. Every election since 1996 has mysteriously gone his way, even when the math looks off and the Wi-Fi gets cut. The 2021 election, for example, was more Hunger Games than democracy. Ballot stuffing, internet blackouts, and a crackdown that left at least 54 people dead. And now, with the 2026 election on the horizon, the vibes are getting even darker. The states turned the heat up on Bobi Wine's party, the National Unity Platform, NUP, with raids, arrests, and disappearances happening like it's some dystopian scavenger hunt. The US Holocaust Memorial Museum even raised the alarm about potential mass atrocities, which isn't exactly the kind of tourism pitch Uganda wants. But things really went off the rails when Museveni's son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the chief of Defense Forces, an official Twitter menace, and heir apparent in this political drama, decided to announce to the world that he'd kidnapped Bobi Wine's bodyguard, Eddie Mutwe. Yes, kidnapped. In a post that read like a villain monologue, he bragged about having Mutwe in my basement, called him a grasshopper, and claimed to be using him as a human punching bag. He even posted about shaving the guy's head, threatening castration, and promised Bobi Wine, "You're next." This was not a parody account. When Mutwe showed up in court days later, barely able to stand and clearly tortured, the government tried to charge him with robbery. Meanwhile, Uganda's Human Rights Commission ordered Muhoozi to release him, like that ever works. And the NUP told Ugandans to save the images as receipts for when his regime eventually gets dragged to court. This isn't Muhoozi's first time playing dictator cosplay. He's posted threats before, called for beheadings, and has already been named in testimonies to the International Criminal Court for running so-called torture centers. And while he claimed in 2024 that he wouldn't run in the next election and would instead support Daddy Dearest, no one's buying it. He's got the army, he's got the attention, and he clearly thinks being president is just a family business. Online, though, Ugandans are calling it what it is, a dynasty pretending to be a democracy. People are also questioning the entire point of elections in a system where the rules are made up and the votes don't seem to matter. The big picture? Museveni's reign is less about governance and more about survival, using force, fear, and family ties to keep the system rigged and the public quiet. His supporters point to economic growth and stability, but for Uganda's young, wired, politically aware generation, this looks more like a hostage situation. The Mutwe case exposed the regime's darkest habits in high definition, and while international outrage is bubbling, real pressure remains limited. Still, the arrogance of Muhoozi's basement confession might just backfire, sparking resistance at home and abroad. Whether that turns into real change, well, that depends on whether Ugandans can build a movement strong enough to pull the plug on 4 decades of rule by force. Wicknell Chivayo has somehow become the physical embodiment of Zimbabwe's national budget. Bloated, flashy, completely unaccountable, and suspiciously offshore. Once a garden variety tenderpreneur with a gift for attracting state contracts like flies to roadkill, he's now evolved into a full-blown continental enigma. Businessman, political mascot, suspected gold trafficker, and part-time motivational speaker for the god-dead crowd. At the heart of his empire is a mysterious business model that seems to rely less on delivering services and more on delivering briefcases. He allegedly landed a $40 million contract with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to supply election materials. What qualified him for the job? Apparently, knowing the president is the new PhD. Leaked audios in 2024 featured a man sounding very much like Wicknell bragging about capturing Mnangagwa. Not metaphorically, more like Pokemon style. Naturally, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission launched an investigation, and naturally, nobody held their breath. ZACC has all the intensity of a toddler pretending to be Batman, enthusiastic, loud, and absolutely incapable of stopping crime. Meanwhile, across the Limpopo, South Africa's Financial Intelligence Center claimed over 1.1 billion rand left Zimbabwe's Ministry of Finance, with 800 million rand allegedly bouncing straight into Wicknell's companies. And from there into the global economy via Louis Vuitton, Emirates First Class, and an alarming amount of Mac Foundation. If true, Wicknell might be Africa's first man to literally launder money through cosmetics. Not that this is new territory. Remember the Gwanda solar project? Of course you don't, because it never happened. But Wicknell's company, Intratrek, got $172 million for it anyway. The sun rose, the panels didn't, and Wicknell was acquitted. Because in Zimbabwe, justice is just another department of public relations. By 2025, X, was on fire again, this time with allegations that Wicknell was using his private jet to smuggle gold out of Zimbabwe, while Kenyan President William Ruto allegedly acted as the middleman to the US. It's like Narcos, Harare edition, except nobody's sure if it's satire or a documentary. Al Jazeera's Gold Mafia says it's the latter. Wicknell says it's haters. Mnangagwa says, if you lost money, report him to the police. Which in Zim-speak is code for, thanks for your donation. Then came the Starlink saga. Out of nowhere, Mnangagwa announced on X that Wicknell had exclusive rights to distribute Starlink in Zimbabwe. No tender, no portras, no ICT ministry, just a vibes-based broadband rollout. In any functioning democracy, this would cause resignations. In Zimbabwe, it just causes another Instagram post of Wicknell posing with Elon Musk's Wi-Fi. His proximity to Mnangagwa is less of a rumor and more of a recurring feature on state TV. He's been spotted riding in the president's helicopter, attending state functions, and in scenes straight out of a political telenovela, welcoming Mnangagwa at the airport like a minister of selfies. His Instagram feed looks less like a businessman's and more like a regime's credit card statement. Wicknell's also been spotted with Ruto in Nairobi, with Suluhu in Tanzania, and even with Museveni in Uganda. Surprise, surprise. Officially, he's promoting renewable energy. Unofficially, it looks a lot like Pan-African money laundering with presidential selfies as receipts. Rumors claim he delivered hush money to Suluhu on behalf of Mnangagwa. It's a rumor. Rumors also claim unicorns exist. The difference is unicorns haven't landed billion-dollar tenders. Back home, Chivayo plays the role of philanthropist, buying cars for influencers, musicians, and ZANU-PF supporters, generously redistributing the stolen future of a nation. While hospitals collapse, and public servants beg for salaries, Wickno is reportedly out here comparing Balenciaga to God's favor. If corruption had a fragrance, it would smell like Wickno's cologne. Imported, expensive, and sprayed over a pile of rot. His defenders say he's never been convicted. His critics say that's because he's bulletproofed by Mnangagwa. His bank account says, try me. And Zimbabwe's corruption index says 158 out of 180. Wickno isn't just a man. He's a metaphor for everything broken in the state. A walking billboard for state capture, a loudspeaker for looted luxury, and a reminder that in Zimbabwe, some people don't just get away with it. They fly private while doing it. So, last week, as President William Ruto addressed a rally in Kahansha, Migori County, something unexpected flew across the stage. A shoe. Not just any shoe, mind you. A shoe that struck Ruto's arm mid-speech as he tried to convince the crowd that his government was solving the country's economic woes. It was the Kenyan equivalent of the "we're doing fine" meme, but in 3D. The shoe, seemingly launched with pinpoint precision, was a metaphorical expression of the public's feelings about the government's promises. Ruto, unfazed by the projectile, casually deflected it and continued with his address. A true display of presidential resilience, or just a man who's seen enough political chaos to shrug off a flying Nike. The aftermath, however, sparked a firestorm of debate. 3 suspects were arrested, including 18-year-old Paul Mutongori Marwa, but reports soon trickled in that Ruto, ever the magnanimous leader, had ordered their release. It's all about development, he reportedly said, as if being pelted with footwear was part of a broader infrastructural project. Some officials, like Dennis Itumbi, did the usual dance of damage control, claiming that the shoe was thrown accidentally. A mock camera, they said, raised in jest, before it got slapped out of the air and found its way to the president. A tragedy of miscommunication. Others, however, were not buying it, arguing that the shoe was a deliberate act of defiance, the equivalent of throwing your hands up in frustration when you realize the country you love is sinking in a sea of inflation and unfulfilled promises. The shoe incident may have been the talk of the town, but it's just a symptom of something far deeper. The national crisis that is William Ruto's presidency. Since taking office in 2022, Ruto has faced the wrath of a public increasingly alienated by economic hardships, taxes, and promises that seem to vanish faster than the price of unga. The cost of living has skyrocketed, fuel prices have surged, and Kenyans are gripped by a sense of hopelessness. His Finance Act, designed to tackle the country's ballooning debt, has only deepened resentment, triggering protests, deadly demonstrations, and accusations that the government is more interested in padding its pockets than fixing the economy. Kenyans, in all their wisdom, have recognized a pattern. Ruto campaigned as a man of the people, the hustler king, promising jobs, reforms, and a nation for every man. Fast forward a few years, and the hustlers are still hustling, but not for jobs. Small business owner Brian Njunguna Mwangi put it best, calling the shoe throwing an expression of desperation, while local resident Maureen Mwihaki summed it up with the sigh of someone tired of hearing the same broken promises. Political analyst Virginia Wanjiru even warned that the shoe incident was a warning sign of deeper societal unrest. Translation: Ruto's government is the political equivalent of a bad relationship. Promises made, none kept, and public trust running on empty. To add fuel to the fire, Ruto's controversial alliance with former rival Raila Odinga has raised more eyebrows than the price of unga. I really like unga, I'm sure you can tell. The handshake deal finalized in March 2025 is seen by many as nothing more than elite power consolidation rather than a genuine effort to address the needs of the people. For a youth demographic already disillusioned by unkept promises, this move is like serving a plate of stale food and asking everyone to pretend it's gourmet. Social media, particularly X, formerly Twitter, has become the battlefield for frustrated Kenyans, with hashtags like Ruto must go trending as young people voice their anger. Some activists, like Mwangi, have been abducted for speaking out against the government, raising chilling concerns about the shrinking space for dissent. If Kenyans are really getting abducted over tweets, things might just be worse than we thought. Ruto, for his part, has tried to defuse the situation. He's abandoned some of his more unpopular tax hikes, made gestures to open his cabinet to the opposition, and secured a deal with China for infrastructure development. Yet, the public remains skeptical. Ruto's every move is met with polarized reactions. On X, the shoe-throwing incident sparked debate. Some condemned it as disrespectful. Others saw it as a fitting symbol of a leadership that has failed to meet the people's expectations. The shoe incident itself might seem like a minor embarrassment in the grand scheme of things, but it's far more potent than it appears. It's a symbol of how low public trust has sunk, and a stark reminder that Kenyans are fed up. If Ruto doesn't address the widespread corruption, soaring costs of living, and his administration's glaring disconnect with reality, then more shoes, literal or metaphorical, are sure to follow. And next time, they might not be so easy to dodge. As you know, I scroll on TikTok. Yes, I do, with the Gen Zs and everybody else. And I like to find my TikToks of the week. Do they have a particular direction? No. Are they always funny? Yes. Do we all have the same sense of humor? I doubt it. Do I care? No. Enjoy the TikToks.
3 things I never want to be invited to. Number 1, gender reveal parties. Because you can just reveal the gender on your WhatsApp status. Post, it's a boy, and we'll clap hands. Instead of calling us to an event where you'll have pink smoke shoot up the air and say it's a girl. Act all surprised, faking it as if you did not know it was a girl 30 days ago. Number 2, don't invite me to see your newborn baby because you want me to lie and say such a cute baby when it's scary. Because it's coming from a different universe, the womb. So the baby will be giving alien vibes, and that is okay. Number 3, don't invite me to something where there won't be free food. I don't want to pay for the food. No. And plus, I come to you not to fast, not to participate in the Hunger Games.
Oh. So this is the amarula we were talking about.
That one?
Yes. But it has a bit of a kick, be careful. But you can taste it. It's got some sweetness, but that's your usual champagne. So, I'll
try amarula.
Yeah, you'll try amarula.
Then we can sleep tonight.
Absolutely.
Make sure you lock up, Mavis.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Hello? Just like Tiffany, I've been trying to get a hold of you.
Guys, it looks like some of you guys haven't been studying. You're probably gonna fail if you haven't studied. Looks like we got some people struggling. Guys, this is why it's important to pay attention in class, so you don't fail. There will be no retakes for this test. If you fail, you're gonna fail. We're just waiting on one more person to finish up. Just waiting on one more person. If you're struggling, it's probably because you didn't study. Guys, this is why it's important to pay attention in class instead of making jokes. Not talking about anybody specifically, but there's some people here that like to make jokes in class and not study. You're a fucking idiot. Why don't you go take your test in the hallway? Yeah. Guys, if I see you with another piece of paper on your desk, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail.
It's like a maze where the exit is hidden, but somebody is selling you a torch. Of course, they don't want the lights turned on. The darkness is their business model. This is why reform is so slow in some places. Not because it's hard, but because clarity threatens cash flow.
On May 8, 2025, history pulled a wild card. The Catholic Church picked a pope from Chicago. Yes, Chicago. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, 69 years old, ex-missionary, longtime reformer, and probably the only pope in history who's both a dual Peruvian citizen and maybe once got stuck on the red line. Now known as Pope Leo XIV, he was elected on the fourth ballot after the death of Pope Francis and came out swinging, not with fire and brimstone, but with peace, humility, and a strong echo of his predecessor's vibe. In his first speech, he quoted Francis lovingly and promised to carry on the mission of opening up the church, dialing down the drama, and focusing on people who don't usually get a seat at the table. His background says a lot. Years spent serving poor communities in Peru, leading the Augustinian order, basically the monk squad for service and simplicity, and being tapped by Francis to help pick bishops, including for the first time 3 women in the room where it happens. His name choice, Leo, might nod to the other Leo, a pope known for daring to say poor people shouldn't be crushed. But insiders say it's also a subtle let's refresh the brand move. But let's talk real talk. The man is progressive, genuinely progressive, not just wrote a tweet once about being kind. Before the white robes, he ran a personal Twitter account that reposted articles calling out Trump's immigration policies and calling J.D. Vance's biblical arguments about loving some people more than others a bit, well, not what Jesus had in mind. He tweeted support for dreamers, spoke up after George Floyd's death, and consistently sided with the voiceless. Naturally, conservative commentators had a full-on theological meltdown. Laura Loomer called him a Marxist puppet. The Pope, a Marxist puppet. And others accused him of being worse than Francis, which in MAGA Catholic circles is like saying someone's more tofu than tofu. And while the Vatican will probably make him retire his Twitter game now that he's officially pontifex, his old posts haven't disappeared, and they read like the diary of a pope who actually believes the Sermon on the Mount applies in real life. Still, despite the freakouts, even Trump congratulated him, probably while side-eyeing a teleprompter and wondering if Chicago's pizza-loving pope might someday invite him over for a truce dinner. In Chicago, people threw parties at Holy Name Cathedral. In Peru, folks celebrated one of their own making it all the way to the top. And the church, well, it's now led by a man who knows how to say Mass in Spanish, speak to the poor without pity, and tell the powerful to sit down gently with love, but firmly. Will he bless same-sex couples or let women become priests? That's still unclear. But what we do know is that Leo XIV isn't here to polish old statues. He's here to build new bridges, wear the white robes with purpose, and make sure that the gospel isn't just read from a gold book, but lived on the streets. All the best, Pontifex. So that has been Second Take, dissecting the latest stories in Africa and of course globally. Thank you very much for joining us. DSTV 25, GoTV 25, oneup2.com and Network Media Hub is precisely where you can find us. And remember, if you don't like your leadership, if you don't like how things are going in your country, you have the power to demand a second take.